Hi guys. I want to do a reading on Sandra Bland, who you might remember that name from about 5 years ago. She was driving and a cop came up on her. She's an African American woman, Black American woman. And a cop came and pulled her, and didn't pull her over. She was doing nothing wrong. He was on her tail, so she pulled over to let him pass. And then he gave her a ticket for pulling over without, a proper turn signal. He was just finding excuses to give her a ticket and then finding excuses to pick a fight with her. Naturally you would be irritated. And he just said, "Are you irritated?" She said, "Yeah." Or, she expressed some irritation. So he got her out of the car. He was violent with her. Her head was knocked on the ground. There's some video of it. You can read about it. I refreshed my memory on Wikipedia. But he was just such a vile officer. She said, when he hit her head she hit her head on the ground, and she said, "I'm epileptic," and he said, "Good." Like, he was just being violent with her, and it was just awful. And then they took her in, and she spent 3 days in jail trying to figure out how to get out. And then supposedly they found her that she had hung herself in her cell. But I remember this. And when this came out, I just felt so disturbed by this, and as did so many other people. And I've always just felt, and anyway, so I'm reminded of her, where, all these protests for Black Lives Matter, and other things against racism out there. And if you can see my last video, I went out on Saturday and joined some things, and some things are happening for George Floyd. They have arrested the officers involved in killing him. And Breonna Taylor, they have changed a law in her state. You can no longer just barge into someone's home without knocking. So, some things are changing. And then, now people are like, we need to revisit Sandra Bland. And I agree. And it just feels so wrong. Nobody was ever charged with anything in that. And there's so many mixed stories. She was depressed. It's like, because a year ago on Facebook she said, "I'm feeling depressed," or because she had, even if you do go have ups and downs, that doesn't mean that you're gonna kill yourself suddenly. She was excited about things. But I do believe that if any sensitive person who's being bullied around like that, you might just say, "I don't even want to live in this world anymore." So, but I still blame those cops for the way they treated her. And I don't know, maybe there's some justice that is going to come out of this. I hope so. So I wanted to do a reading on that. So my question being, Sandra Bland, was she murdered? Was there foul play? And will there be justice? Hi. So I did flip a lot of cards, and sort of, I think I have a story here that I have sort of figured out. What I think is, with this Hermit card, I do think she chose solo to take her life. Again, I don't think that she would have done this had she not been pulled over and thrown into jail for nothing and treated like garbage. It is a systematic thing that our Black citizens have to deal with. So yeah, even if I say she took her own life, that doesn't mean that it wasn't the fault of the cops for treating her terribly. I see that, so just that Hermit card, when I'm asking, I'm trying to figure out, did she do this alone? Or was she murdered? And I get this. It's like, she made this choice by herself. So, I don't know. Maybe that's better. It's so horrible anyway. But for her, it was better. That's what I'm feeling in this. I get this card. This was upside down. This is her saying, I'm going to be the one to decide I'm not going to be pushed and shoved around by these people anymore. I'm going to be the one to take it. Was her version of taking control. It's upside down, obviously, because nobody should have to take control of their life by taking their life. But that is what I feel the cards are telling me here. This was her way of taking her power in that moment when she had no power and all these other people did. This I see as there's a lawyer that is, sort of petitioning or doing some work to try to reopen the case. I just feel that as a lighthearted or, a good person. This lovers at the bottom, I feel, is us. We are the sort of the force, along with, of course, her family. But the force that is sort of bringing her back into the collective consciousness to be examined, because we're feeling things. We're feeling things for all these injustices. And so it's like sort of the American people coming to her defense and saying, what about Sandra Bland? We need to look at that now. So that's what's sort of bringing up this new thought, this Knight of Cups, to try to bring it back. In her recent past, now I see that. So I initially got the Fool, and which tells me this was just her driving her car. She was starting a new phase in her life, but also in terms of the question I asked. Well, yeah, so like I had the Fool, and then I had the Hierophant. So here she is just driving her car innocently, and suddenly the law comes in and says, oh, you're doing something wrong, and I can do that because I'm the system that says that I can do that. It's just, and then we've got this Eight of Swords, and I'm going to throw you in jail, and I am the king, and I get to do that. I am authority. I also, in my question, did she take her own life or was she murdered? The Fool, I also see as her choosing to take that journey of to get freedom. That she didn't get to take the life journey she wanted, but in that cell, I think she decided, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go free myself in that way. Not that I think, would recommend it, but in her situation, that's how she felt, I think. This is another one of looking of a journey, and it's so sad to think of, because in all of these, and this is her hopes for a life, but in her moment when they were keeping her captive, by taking her life, this was her way of going through those doors, the journey out, and finding her freedom. And I think this card makes me feel positive, this Ten of Cups, that she did, she was welcomed warmly when she passed, and taken care of well. And this Strength card, I also see her as she was a strong person. Anybody would get irritated with a cop acting like that, but then I also see this as her having been like strong-armed and bullied. So there was I think these were two strong people, and but the king wasn't having it, and so this was maybe her way of taking her strength back. You're not, I'm not going to be submitting to your authority anymore. I'm taking my own authority into my own hands. I see this as, people are signing petitions. People are tweeting and social media posts and marching. And, I see this also as lawyerly things being written up in order to revisit this case. I do see this as that they at the police station, they did try to hide some things. Once she did this, they wanted to cover how badly they had treated her. So there's some of that going on. This I see as that bad guy who treated her like garbage. The hopes and fears is that more will, that he can be charged with more than, I think he was let go from that office, but there needs to be more. He's upside down because he's a liar and a jerk, and there should be some accountability. That's the hope anyway. The final outcome, now I got the death card, which tells me I think they will revisit this. I think something will be revisited. And then I wanted some clarifiers on it, and I get a Knight of Pentacles. And then 2 pages. So, I don't see it as anything major coming out of it, but there will be some things, you know what I mean? Like maybe a new law or and there already was a new policy written up for, if you have someone with you who is, you need to do like wellness checks. Like you can't just treat people like garbage. My God. I can't imagine, but I can try to imagine how angry and horrible that would feel. And then the Page of Wands, I see like people are standing up for her. And I know that the people in these marches and these protests, they're not just young people, but a lot of them are young people or just, new to this cause, standing up for her. I see, which is already happening, but that's just represented there. And then a Page of Pentacles. I see this as a sort of love being sent to Sandra Bland from the people. Like you've seen with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and it's like she's having her time now as well. I got this at the bottom of the deck at one point, this Page of Cups. This does tell me that she was a sensitive person. Like I was saying, a sensitive person might take their life if they are just being treated so horribly and they cannot stand it. It's just like they cannot stand it. It's too painful. And so like the fact that it was upside down like that is sort of a confirmation for me that there was she just was being humiliated. She did not deserve that, and it was too much for her. I do see that I got this card upside down, which tells me there is I see this as there are people getting their story straight. And upside down tells me that, they're getting their lies straight. So there is some of that happening. And then I did get these 3 at the bottom, and I really think this tells me a story that we have the Queen of Cups. I believe that's her. She's an emotional. I'm an emotional person. She was an emotional person, emotional woman, big heart kind of thing. But that, and then the Moon is, I do. It just basically what I'm saying is I do think it points to taking her own life in that moment. This Tower card, she was pulled out of her car. She was abused. She was hurt. She might have even had a head injury from hitting her head. And this Moon card, it's like I think she just sort of laid awake in her cell. And the Moon saying that we might never like sort of fully be able to get that satisfaction of understanding fully, but that it was a painful night. Her world had come crumbling down, and she just wasn't having it anymore. This Hermit card. I mean, there are a lot of big cards too here, big Arcana cards. And this was, so like I said, her way, her choice, her way of holding onto her power in the only way she felt she could in that moment. Her hurt. And her way of taking that journey and freeing herself from just a world that was just unfair. Taking that, crossing over, and finding herself in a new sort of heavenly place, which is nice. And and so we're gonna, sort of be honoring her and what she went through more, and hopefully revisiting the wrongdoing that was done in those days, and make some new policies and see some change. So that's my read on that. God bless Sandra Bland, and God bless her soul, and and her family. And thanks for watching. And let me know if you had any thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.